This Week in Startups is brought to you by Breather, workspaces and offices designed for growing companies. Breather offers spaces you can call your own for hours, days, or months at a time. Visit breather.com/twist and experience Breather for yourself with a free full-day booking. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Twist listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. Go to ziprecruiter.com/twist. And PayPal. When it comes to growing your business, PayPal is your payments partner for today and tomorrow. Visit paypal.com/growth to sign up for free and set up a business account today.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and today I have a great guest, Georgene Huang. Huang.
That's right.
Huang. And she is the CEO and co-founder of Fairygodboss. And her story starts being fired when she was 2 months pregnant, and then having to look for a job and having a non-optimal time. And you created Fairygodboss almost as a reaction to that. Am I correct?
Yeah,
that's the origin story?
It is the origin story. I mean, when you're 2 months pregnant, you know you're pregnant, but almost nobody else knows you're pregnant.
Right.
Because you're not really showing. And it wasn't my first kid. So I'd been through this. I knew I was going to go back to work. But that was my aha moment. I'm a woman. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
I'm biologically going to have this child, and that's going to be a different experience than a man has. And I happened to be job seeking at the time.
And tell everybody what the challenge was there. What did you find as a pregnant woman? In what time period was this? Because times have changed radically, I think.
Yes, you're right. 3.5 years ago.
So this is pre-MeToo.
Yes. Pre-Hillary Clinton running for president.
Pre-Hillary Clinton running for president. But I think people were under perhaps a false impression at that time that things were much better than they actually were. Did you feel a lot of bias as a pregnant woman interviewing?
Actually, no, because I didn't tell anybody. So that was a little bit of my conundrum. I felt like I should be able to talk about it.
Right.
But there was just no way I was going to go into my personal life in an interview. I grew up in law and finance, and I'm an older millennial, and I still sort of just am conservative about my personal life, so I don't like to talk about it at work. And so when I went on these interviews, there were certain questions I had, like, what was this company's maternity leave policy? I didn't want to ask, and most companies don't publish that. I wanted to find out how many women were in management positions because I was a senior executive at the time, and I wanted to make sure there were people in the room that looked kind of like me. Right. Or I believed that I could succeed there at that level. And I also wanted to find out about FaceTime versus flexibility because, I did have a young kid at home already, and I knew if I needed to leave at 6, I would log back right on as soon as he was asleep. But I didn't want to have to explain that, worry about not getting promoted because I walked out the door, get the stink eye.
Yeah, and you're working in finance and legal, two areas that are known for long hours.
Yeah, I mean, tech too.
Tech too, yeah. But those two areas, finance, really long hours, at least from my perception of it.
Yeah, I mean,
law too, like law's known for that, right? Destroy the attorneys with ridiculously long hours. The expression I heard in New York was like, when you're a lawyer, the weekends are for seeing your kids, right? Like don't expect to see your kids during the week. That's what the weekends are for. Yeah,
and I wasn't a lawyer for that long, but one of the reasons I stopped being a lawyer was that I think when I was 24 years old, Friday night, the 45-year-old partners on my floor were still there, midnight.
It's bonkers.
And, I didn't feel that the work that we were doing really needed to be done at the office at that time. I mean, the internet did exist in 2004.
Right. Yeah, you didn't need to be editing documents.
Yeah, an SEC filing at midnight.
Yeah, and they're kind of rote, right? Like you're doing the 78th version of this of the year. It's not
and
like...
listen, it's important to get it right. I'm not saying anything. You're paid well to get it right, but, do you have to do it on specific terms? Unclear sometimes.
The United States has had abysmal maternity/paternity leave. It's still pretty abysmal when compared to Europe, right?
Yes. So I actually had my first kid in the UK, but I was working for an American company. And anyway, there are very different policies abroad, and it depends on the country you're in. And different states in the United States have different policies as well. It's not just about leave and time off, but whether you're paid for it or paid during it at all, and whether your job's protected so that when you come back, you still have it.
Your job is let's walk through what the law is. Your job is protected when you come back, but and you have a couple of weeks off.
No, it's actually incredibly complicated. So if you work for an employer of a minimum size,
50 is the number?
I think it's 50.
Yeah.
Or, if you have two offices, it's 75 within a certain mile radius of each other, these two offices. And you've worked there for, I believe, at least 1 year or some certain number of hours per year in the prior year, then you get 12 weeks off unpaid.
Right.
Whether you're a man, a woman, whether it's to caretake for a new child or for a sick family member.
Right. And in Denmark and Sweden, you get a year off paid, I think by the government.
Something like that,
for men and women, and they're super happy over there.
Yeah,
they have crazy taxes, but
they don't even have daycares that accept children under 8 months old in Sweden.
Wow. They're like, that's your job. Do not bring us your baby.
Right.
That's fascinating. That's interesting. And so how are the big tech companies, since it's a tech show, doing on that scorecard now? So you're ranking the best companies for women. One factor is obviously maternity. I would guess women in senior positions, you kind of alluded to that being an important factor. What are the other important factors, now that you have the website and people are going there, what are the important factors women need to know or women want to know when selecting a job outside of maternity, obvious, and senior ranking women in the company? Those
we straight up ask, do you think as a woman you're treated equally to men at your company? And we collect data, so not just words and opinions, unstructured content. We're very deliberate about it being a data-oriented platform. So we ask questions like, do you think you're treated equally to men on the basis of pay, on the basis of promotion, on the basis of hiring, and in terms of evaluations and your reviews? And so we see correlations between whether women think that they're treated equally to men and whether they would recommend the company to other women, for example.
So it's kind of like your NPS question.
That's right.
Like you've come up with the standard question. Do you think you're treated equally? And how do our companies here in the Valley wind up on the score?
Actually, I mean, you can look at the top-rated list on our site. It's nothing editorial at all. It's all just female employee-based.
Right.
And some of the top companies are not the ones with the most generous and lavish policies when it comes to maternity leave. And I think that's because there's just a basic sense of fairness and in the culture that's a little bit intangible. You can't measure that by money spent on a program. Like, you can't just have a terrible culture and then 20 paid weeks of leave and suddenly all the women love working there.
That makes total sense to me.
So you'll appreciate the 20 weeks of paid leave.
Thank you, but I would also like to be paid the same as my male counterpart, and I would like to have the same opportunity.
Right. And I just I like the culture there. I think it's fair, et cetera.
So here we go. Fairygodboss, best companies for women, and you have the score here. Ultimate Software, ZS, ADP, Hilton, Boston Consulting Group, Facebook at number 13, IBM at 15, Dell at 17. Keep scrolling down. I guess it's early days for you. Do you have enough of a data set now to feel like these are representative of reality, or is it just early? Because I don't see Google here, which I'm either wondering Google's a terrible place for women, or...
You can pull up Google. Google used to be on the list, and then they were sort of kicked off by people who had better reviews. It's not terrible. I mean, it is early days. What we should really do at some point is weight these based on employee size of the company itself. But some companies are really impressive here that you would not necessarily think of, like Hilton.
Or ADP.
Right.
Like the alarm company?
No, that's a payroll
right,
processing company.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting.
So,
so Hilton is great.
Has 43 reviews. I think ADP has a much higher number of reviews, something like in the hundreds. So we need to weight these sort of by employee size.
Right.
But these are just, it is what it is. We disclose the methodology. You have to go and read the reviews to get a sense of place.
Are companies now asking their employees to go do ratings. Like Glassdoor kind of has this anonymous rating system where, you know, if you fire somebody or somebody's laid off, they're really super motivated to write a review. If they're totally happy with their job, nobody's that like, where can I write like a really super happy, I'm happy with my job? They don't do it, right?
Right. So
how do you manage that revenge review issue that Yelp also has too, which is like, I had to wait 10 minutes for my review. And are yours anonymous?
Yes, all the reviews are anonymous. I would say that the perception of reviews is sort of what you just said, that you either get really unhappy people or really happy people. But the truth is, if you think about your Yelp experience, for example, how many times have you noticed the restaurant ratings converging to a 4?
3.5, I think, is actually.
3.5, 4.
Yeah.
So our average rating on the site is probably 3.5.
Right.
And so with enough data, that just happens. And so it's not actually true that the ratings end up being dominated by people who are at 1s or 5s. It actually does look more like a normal distribution after you have thousands, tens of thousands of reviews.
Yeah. All right. When we get back, you've done a survey. 900 people participated from your site about sexual harassment in the workplace. We're going to get into that and look at some of those statistics as well on This Week in Startups. Stick with us. You all know that I always say, do the work. It's on the cup right here. Do the work. I talk about it in my book. I always tell people, just do the work. Well, where are you going to do the work? A lot of you are using, like me, breather spaces. We use it for our incubator and our accelerator. And breather spaces are amazing if you need something for a day or two or an hour or two. What you may not know is that Breather now has breather offices where you can book for a week or a month or even years. And not just for 2 people or 10 people. You could have 50 people or more. And you don't want to waste your resources on unused space. That's why you want to partner with Breather and Breather offices. No noisy co-working nonsense. You get your Wi-Fi, you get your cleaning. It's all furnished, and they will do a design consultation with you for your Breather office space so that you get the culture you want, not some culture you're inheriting from some co-working space. And if you take a Breather office for a month or more, you're going to receive free same-day access to a network of 500 plus workspaces across the US, Canada, and London, which is perfect for offsites and last-minute meetings. Wait a second. If you take a Breather office for a month or more, you're going to receive free same-day access to that network. What a great idea. So it's ideal for growing companies. Their mission is to empower companies with space that helps them meet their full potential with none of the restrictions that hold you back at other spaces. Skip the hassle of long-term leases, which can be death, and you don't want to get into the long-term negotiation process of landing a space. No, if you're going to have long negotiations, have it be with your customers, not office space and realtors. You can scale up or down, no muss, no fuss, as your headcount changes, no drama. And we used it just yesterday, in fact, and we love using Breather. So I want you to visit breather.com/twist and experience Breather for yourself with a free full-day booking. What? Wait a second. Breather's giving my listeners a free full-day booking? That's, again, very generous. These partners we have here are super generous with y'all. I want you to do this right now. Go to breather.com/twist and experience a Breather for yourself with a free full-day booking, huh? Pretty good. Okay, let's get back to this great episode. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. We're talking about women in the workplace today with Georgene Huang from Fairygodboss.com. You started the company about 3 years ago.
That's
Raised
right.
$3 million, $4 million?
$4 million.
Congratulations on that. Previously, an attorney was fired and then got nowhere finding finding information about workplace fairness for women. Probably a good way to say it.
Yeah, workplace fairness.
Workplace fairness.
How companies treat women.
Has it gotten better? You're a millennial, so you've been in the workforce for 20 years, 15 years. Do you feel like it's getting better? Or this reckoning that we've had with MeToo and equal pay and women creating spreadsheets of equal pay at Google and finding all these discrepancies. Do you feel it's getting better, faster? And there's like the velocity of the world getting more fair is happening?
Look, the World Economic Forum, I think, just put out some statistic that's horrifying, that it's going to take 217 years to get to gender parity. And that's on a number of measures, health, economics, et cetera.
On a global basis.
Yeah. And look, that's like an impossible number to really fathom overall, because that means that my daughter's certainly never going to see equity in her lifetime.
Yeah, we're 6 generations away.
Right, exactly. But I think I'm fundamentally an optimist. I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of just are.
Yeah.
And I also am really closely in touch now with a lot of companies who are trying to do more and to do better, and a lot of individual women who are also seeing it as part of their responsibility to do something to help accelerate this change. So yeah, I think it's happening.
We did see that at Google with the walkout last week. That was tremendous and drove massive change.
And I think 5 years ago, if you step back and think about that moment, really, thousands of women walking out over sexual harassment policies.
Everybody walked out. I mean, it was men too. It was everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it was across the board. Let's talk about pay for a second. Should people get paid the same amount, putting aside gender for a second? Obviously, people doing the same work, same experience, should get paid the same, independent of gender. But should people doing the same job get paid the same rate? In other words, if you had 10 years and you were doing those documents as attorney, but somebody had 5 years or 15, should there be differences in pay based upon experience if you're doing the same job? I know it's kind of the third rail, but I was researching this and I was like, looking at the law and also what the best practice is. There seems to be two camps. One that no matter what the job is, everybody gets paid the same if it's the same work. And then there was another group that was like, hey, that's unfair. If somebody's got 10 years doing legal documents and you gave them a raise, or they've been loyal to the company, they've been with the company longer, they should get merit raises for staying with the company. Their compensation should be different. Where do you sit on that issue?
So I only practiced law for 6 months, so I don't want to weigh in on the legal.
Yeah, put the legal aside. I'm just
putting the legal
aside. Yeah,
I think that the most progressive companies on this issue pay people on the basis of their role and responsibilities and contribution to the company, not based on where they came from, their salary history, and that includes their years of experience.
So that's what a group, what do you think? Where do you fall on that? I'm curious.
So I think that tends to be right, because if it took you 15 years to get to the same contribution level as someone, and it took that other person 2 years, aren't you really penalizing the person who only has two? I mean, are you penalizing the person for being slower to get to the same place? I guess I think that the easiest way to address this is just, what is your contribution level? And if it's equal to somebody else's, then you should give them the same title.
Right.
And you should pay them the same. And you otherwise can't very easily do a compensation audit of the kind, for example, that Salesforce has done or SAP has done.
Yeah, this seems to be the most troubling one. And I don't know where I sit on it, because I was thinking about it and I was like, well, if I was a young person and I only had 2 years experience and I came into a position, I would be like, well, I'm doing the same work. I'm editing this. Let's say we're editing videos. Well, I'm editing videos. You're editing videos. We both edit 3 videos a day. We should get paid the same. And then I was like, well, wait a second. What if the other person has 4 Emmys or has done it for 10 years, but they're still doing 3 videos a day, but one of them has 15 years experience? Well, obviously the person with 15 years experience, their videos might be better. They might have better experience. So it's very hard for me to
Well, it's all about definitions here, because you could say that the guy with the Emmys or the girl with the Emmys should have a different title. And even it's not about just literally how many videos you edit, but the quality, right? So then you call them a senior video editor.
Yeah.
I don't know what video editing titles
Then
are.
what about like loyalty to the company? So the person with the company, and you give the person at 10 years, 2% merit raises every year for being loyal to the company. What do you think about that argument?
I think that's probably why compensation consultants get paid so much money. This is really a hard issue.
Right.
I don't envy the people who have to do it, because I think it costs quite a lot of money to gather all the right data. And then
I like to go right to the third rail, because I think some of these
hard.
issues are so obvious that I can't believe that a company like Google has pay disparities between men and women in the same positions.
Well, they claim they don't.
They don't now, they claim. They did. I think they did it,
I know there was this lawsuit, but I don't know where it ended up.
Yeah. What do you think about this issue? Let's just keep going to the third rail.
Yeah.
The former CEO of Reddit, who was involved in the big case with Kleiner Perkins, Ellen Pao, thank you, said women are not good negotiators. Therefore, all salaries should be set and non-negotiable. So we have this developer position. It's $110,000. We don't negotiate. So if somebody comes in and says, well, I made $127 at the last job and I want to I'll take a $5,000 cut. But do you think women are inherently worse at negotiation and negotiations should not be allowed and it should be a set pay rate?
So I generalize about women all the time, but I hate having to generalize about women because the whole problem with generalizations, it just fundamentally disregards any individual's ability, powers, and that's how we get biased in the first place, right? But everyone's always asking me, okay, so what are they good at? What do they want? And of course, we have some data that shows some of this. And I think the research does support her claim that women tend to be less good at self-promotion and therefore negotiation. And there's also this penalty of needing to look likable. And if you're a woman that negotiates, how likable are you?
Oh, right.
And so you have to negotiate differently than a man. So it's very complicated, this topic of how and whether women can negotiate as well as men.
Yeah, it's super complicated. I was thinking it sounds like she's right, and then I was immediately feeling guilty, like, wait a second, am I supposed to agree with Ellen Pao because she's super woke and, you know, she had this terrible experience at Kleiner, or is that like such an overgeneralization that it's insulting to women to say that they can't negotiate, or is it actually based on some truth? Which then let's go to the next third rail. The James Damore memo. What's your hot take on that? What are your thoughts on that? The science clearly says that gender and other issues lead people to different career paths. That doesn't seem illogical. And all the scientists who read the memo said, like, yeah, those are actual references to science, sure, like, correct. What was your take on that moment, I guess?
So again, this goes back to generalizations. It's one thing to do. There was a very large-scale study actually just reported in The Guardian about women being less analytical than men and women being more, this is a stereotype and trope, right? Emotionally intelligent women.
I mean, it could also be based on science too. I mean,
it could be based on science. It could be based on lots of things, but it doesn't matter because when you're dealing with an individual employee or individual woman, you can't go into a conversation about her compensation or what job or promotion she's going to have.
Based on science. Yeah.
Right, because
statistically as a woman, you'd be more inclined.
She's a one person as opposed to all women.
Yeah. I think that's the point that I found that memo so clueless. I mean, almost Asperger-y, like when I saw him speak, because he's kind of become this like co-opted right-wing, like, I don't know, these incel guys, like this Reddit, weird subreddit kind of culture. And it's like, what a stupid approach to talking about the issue, to send a company-wide memo of something so obvious that, like, yes, there are physiological differences between men and women, and that those things may lead to different career choices. It's like so obvious that the bigger issue is, well, nobody should be penalized for that. Everybody should just have the same opportunity and get paid the same. So what is the point of even bringing this up?
I mean, I don't find myself often in a position, I'm not defending him, but I think he was just trying to express himself. And he was feeling that the company didn't allow free expression. And so he decided to put a big statement out there.
Yeah, it's almost like a troll. Like, it was almost like a troll move. But I don't think he's so Asperger-y, like when I watched him talk, that I don't think he even was aware of like the social context.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Like,
I don't know whether it's
memo
Asperger's or not, but obviously it wasn't very culturally sensitive.
Yeah. All right, let's go to this harassment survey you did, because it's just horrific, to be candid. Have you ever been sexually harassed at work? Oh, my Lord. 37% of people in 2018. 2017, 41% of people. So you've been doing this for 2 years. Mm-hmm. It's gone down. That's good, but the number is absurd.
Yeah, 1 in every 3 women, right? Or a little more.
It's so bonkers. And this is in the years after the MeToo movement, that women in 2018 are still being harassed at work.
I mean, this data is not that inconsistent with other surveys that are out there on this topic.
All right, let's take a look at the next slide.
It's happening a lot.
Who is doing it? 1 out of 3 times, it's the direct boss. Or 25% other people in management. 56% of the time it's a colleague. So that's what you would expect, is that people fraternizing or dating at work.
Right. Flirting, things crossing a line without you maybe realizing or intending to, or it being unclear.
Yeah, that to me seems like, okay, people are trying to adjust to a generational difference where people, you're a millennial. I'm
like borderline.
78?
80s. I was born in the 80s.
Okay, I was born in 70. When we went to work, they were like, that's where you find your spouse. Like, there was almost...
Really?
Yeah, I think you went to... It was likely that you would, you know...
Interesting.
I think boomers especially were anticipating finding a mate or a spouse at work. That was the culture in the 80s. But you went to work in the 90s when it probably shifted.
Actually, in the 2000s.
In the 2000s, yeah. In the 80s, you were expected to find your spouse at work, or you would date at work. It was kind of... So the colleague thing, to me, seems like... I think even... Facebook allows, the Facebook rule, I don't know if you heard this, was you can ask somebody on a date at Facebook one time.
I don't think you can stop people from dating at work. And I don't think that's sexual harassment to date at work or date a colleague.
And it's not legal. It's not legal to tell people they can't date at work.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That 56% could be just clueless people asking people out on a date a third time.
And making them
feel uncomfortable at work.
Right.
But how on earth does a direct boss in 2018 harass a subordinate? This is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been 20 years of sexual harassment training. Don't date a subordinate if you're a manager. How on earth does this still happen?
I mean, if you look at what kinds of actions constitute sexual harassment in the survey, maybe somewhere later, a lot of it is sort of verbal, right? Sexual harassment is defined as creating an environment where someone's gender is the basis of you can't make them feel uncomfortable because of their gender. So if you're talking about prostitutes around or going to strip clubs around your female subordinate,
slide 7,
then that constitutes technically, if you keep doing it in a way that makes this a hostile workplace, that's part of the definition. I mean, that's very legal, what I've just described.
Sure.
But you could imagine how, forget the legality of it, your boss keeps talking about women's bodies around you.
Yeah.
It's not even about you.
Yeah. Or men's bodies, because now we're having...
Yes, you can have men.
We've been having the opposite now, too.
Totally. Men can be this subject of sexual harassment.
On a very de minimis, probably low single-digit basis overall. I think they're generally not on the receiving end of this.
Well, I think we probably still have more heterosexual people in society.
Yeah.
So it's just...
Yeah. But verbal seems to be the top category here. So people are talking about things. Some people have not gotten the memo that don't talk about sex at work.
Right.
Just like people used to put like Playboy magazines in their lockers, people are still talking about sex at work. So dumb. Like, why would you ever do that as a senior manager?
Right. Or it could just be your boss. I mean, your boss could be 28 years old.
That's true. It's so dumb. I mean, it's just unbelievable that somebody could be in management and not have gotten the literal memo. I have to say, though, I'm looking back on it. My first job when I was out of college, one of my first jobs was putting in computer networks for law firms. And they specifically would take out the law firm IT teams and attorneys to Scores in New York, the strip club.
Yeah.
That was considered how you rewarded your legal...
Scores. I'm from New York, so that makes me laugh. I remember the Scores.
Scores, yeah. So go to Scores. Scores, yeah. The West Side Highway somewhere. And we would take the legal department, the law firm's IT department, plus attorneys who were responsible for this, to Scores.
Were they all dudes?
No, sometimes women.
Yeah, I went as a woman to Scores with my guy colleagues in finance.
Yeah. So now, going to Scores would just be a dumb thing to do in today's context.
Right. I think in the 90s they started saying you can't submit reimbursements from strip clubs.
Yeah, go ahead and not do that. And what stopped you from reporting it? Let's talk about this slide for a second. Women don't want to be looked at as troublemakers, huh?
I mean, think about having to report this and then it becoming a he said, she said thing. And then everyone's walking on ice around you. Just imagine from the perspective of, the victim.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be so much easier to just let it go under the table, forget about it? Yeah. And so it's not surprising to me that it's not reported.
Right.
What upside is there for you personally?
Yeah, there is none.
I mean, you would...
To make a more just world is like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice my career,
my reputation,
future employment, taking care of my family, paying bills, livelihood.
Let's look at Ellen Pao for a moment.
Yeah.
Now, we can't say her name without thinking about that one thing that happened to her, I mean, despite her career, which has encompassed so many other things.
Yeah. And it is now her, her obituary will be Ellen Pao, who, had a sexual harassment.
You can't unforget the pink elephant.
No,
Once you say
it is. Yeah. But she deserves super credit. I mean, she was clearly, that was such a complicated case. I want to have her on the program, but it's such a complicated case. I think maybe they've agreed to not talk about it.
Yeah, I'm sure part of
because she dated at work. She was dating somebody.
Yep. Then
that person harassed her. So it's like, I can't even get my head around it. And she lost the lawsuit. So it's like, it makes it, it's like the whole concept of there's no perfect victims. Like I couldn't even understand that case. Let's look at this one. I think this is pretty interesting too. Does it seem like, what would be your interpretation of this data? At what age do you feel you experience the most harassment at work? So it feels like young people feel like they were harassed 40-50% of the time when they were younger, 30 and under. And then as they got older, they were less harassed. Do you have any insight into this one? I can think of a couple of the areas, but I think it'd be better to hear from you.
Well, if you think that 50% of the perpetrators are your colleagues, and let's say that means that they're in a lateral position of power to you, then maybe this is something that's happening predominantly amongst peers in a dating kind of context, or like young men and women talking about sex or bodies or something related to.
Oh, wow, that's a nice suit jacket, or wow, your hair looks good today.
Right. And maybe you're more likely to be single. And so this involves some of this gray area flirtation / dating. But, looking at these ages, it resonates with me. I mean, I'm becoming, I guess, more biologically irrelevant as I,
or maybe,
maybe I got married. And so it's just fairly clear I'm off the market, right? I have kids. So why sexually harass her?
Or people who get older. My theory was people get older.
And wiser.
Get theoretically wiser, or a cynical way to look at it would be they realize the cost of doing something stupid.
It's higher.
It's higher. Like, come on, I'm 45 years old, I'm 50 years old, or I'm 35 years old. Like, I'm really going to hit on somebody at work and have to go into HR and lose my career, and I got kids in school. Like, what? This is just dumb. Whereas when you're 25, you're just like, what are we going to do tonight? Wow, that's a cool dress, Like,
I mean, I just saw that Monica Lewinsky decided to be part of some sort of docu-series on what happened to her. And it made, what you just said about the age difference made me think, okay, so she was one of these people in the 18 to 24 category.
Yeah,
right?
With the dopey 45-year-old or above who just didn't understand, like, what a ridiculous power dynamic it is. I mean, if you're going to put the percentage blame there, it's 95-5. Like, you have she was very young, 21 or something.
Intern, so you must have been
21 or something. Crazy. Okay, let's do a quick break, and when we come back, I want to see more of your product, and then I want to know how you make money.
Yeah.
Because you got all this data, you got all these rankings, and I know people at the big companies where we have a lot of senior female leadership these days, people want to get things right. So how does your tool, Fairygodboss, help companies get it right when we get back on This Week in Startups? Are you hiring? Well, if you're listening to this podcast, This Week in Startups, I'm going to guess you have a startup. And if you have a startup, you're hiring. But posting to job sites results in you waiting and waiting for the right people to see it. Well, you want to use ZipRecruiter, which is a platform that finds the right job candidate for you. It learns what you're looking for, it identifies people with the right experience, and it invites them to apply for your job. These invitations have revolutionized how you will find your next hire. 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate, wait for it, in just one day. How does that sound, huh? 80% of you right now who are listening, you could have that amazing quality candidate in just a day. And ZipRecruiter even spotlights the strongest applications you receive, so you never miss a great match when you're sorting through all that incredible talent. The right candidates are out there, and ZipRecruiter is how you find them. So here is your call to action. I want you to go to ZipRecruiter.com/twist. That's ZipRecruiter.com/twist. It is the smartest way to hire. Go ahead and go to ZipRecruiter.com/twist and get started finding the strongest candidates that'll be the game changers for your business. You want to sleep well at night? You want your business to grow? You got to use ZipRecruiter.com/twist and get those great candidates coming in for job interviews ASAP. You need them yesterday, so get to work. And ZipRecruiter is going to be your partner in this. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/twist. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Welcome back to This Week in Startups, a very important episode where we're talking about women in the workplace and creating equality, fairness, and just a lack of brain-dead harassment that is still going on. It is brutal. Fairygodboss.com, check it out. It's been around for about 3 years. And Georgene, we're looking at your survey, and I guess you're going to do this every year.
Yeah.
You like the data, huh? You're into the data.
I think it brings a level of analytic rigor to all these conversations that are happening in the nation, right?
Yeah. This slide, number 13 here, do you think the MeToo movement has made an impact at your workplace? I would think, when I looked at this chart, it's 70-30. I would immediately think,
the answer is yes.
Yes, 70%. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
It seems to me, anecdotally, here in Silicon Valley in tech, and having been an investor in Uber, which had the huge issue of a boss in an IT department in an open marriage harassing a developer. It's just like in Slack or whatever in their chat rooms. It's just like, really? I mean, like this polyamory thing in Silicon Valley is like literally.
I read about it in Brotopia. I thought it was fascinating.
It's just so ridiculous. It's like you're just not married. You're dating. It's like, can we just call it what it is? Like you came up with a fun word for it, polyamory. But like polyamory does not mean you get to harass people who work for you. Like, but why do you think this is? Like, I thought companies were rapidly trying to change things. Women feel they're not. It hasn't made a difference. What do you think? Because you work with the companies, right?
Yes, we work with companies, and we have 3 million women on the site a month. So I think of us as deeply working with women as well. Yeah. We just don't make money from the women per se. We don't charge them anything. Right. Companies, when surveyed, the Society of Human Resource Management says that most companies or most managers think that they've done a pretty good job addressing MeToo. And I think the discrepancy between employees' perceptions and employers' perceptions come down to some of it is just internal comms. It's really boring stuff. Like if you implemented sexual harassment training and made it mandatory now, does that make an individual female employee feel like your company's done a lot? I mean, yeah, no. Exactly, right?
No, so everybody laughs during that training because it's so like, if you're got half a brain, they're like, is it okay to ask somebody on a date 3 times? You're just like, no, it's obvious.
Right. So a company may have responded by implementing some training. And it may be sexual harassment training, it may be some bias training, but is that going to make a woman who feels like she's experiencing sexual harassment that the company's really done anything material? Probably not. So I think there's...
What does make women feel that something material has been done? Because I've read about the arbitration clauses being super significant. Explain to everybody why arbitration or forced arbitration is a bad thing.
So let's talk about when that happened. So that walkout that was in the news with Google, after that, eBay, Facebook, Google, probably a couple of other big tech companies in the Valley decided to end this forced arbitration clause. Right. But look how much after Me Too that was. So I mean,
why is it important?
Probably nobody even understands what it means if you're the typical female employee.
Yeah, can we go into that? What does it mean, forced arbitration? Why is forced arbitration? Because some people might elect to do arbitration because it's done privately. Not Ellen Pao. My God, it's so brave to go to court. And like we just said, like our whole career is defined now by that moment in time because it was so high profile.
Right. Look, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that when you're a victim of something, you don't want to have only one choice to solve a problem.
Right.
And those clauses are typically seen as protective of the company and the employer because it gets to keep everything hush-hush.
Right.
And so there's no admission of blame. Arbitration is like this gentle,
Sweep it under the rug.
we agree to disagree.
Yeah,
we admit no fault.
Yeah, cut some checks that are meaningless.
And therefore, the check sizes are probably smaller.
Ah. So
that's my guess, right? Why
Yeah.
would you do it in addition to the quietness of it?
Yeah. So the problem with the arbitration clauses is that they're forced.
It takes the leverage out of the woman's hands, right, or the victim's hands. Because if you can't threaten something public, then by definition, I think your leverage for negotiation
goes way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Create better, clearer policies that protect victims. That was something women said here in your survey people could do. Create better, clearer policies that address perpetrators. That's definitely something that has to happen. It seems like these companies have been covering up a whole bunch, huh?
This zero tolerance policy, if a company goes from being silent on the issue to saying we have a zero tolerance policy about sexual harassment, that's another example of, does that really make the women at the company feel like the company's done anything different?
Right.
Or just like level setting to where it should have been in the first place?
Yeah. Create anonymous helpline. That's clearly a good idea in women's minds.
Right, because so much of the issue with bringing it up in the first place is having your name stuck to it, right? As opposed to that bad person's name being stuck to it. But of course, that's tricky because you don't want people to just feel like they're having, I mean, I put myself in the, you have to have empathy for people. Look at the Kavanaugh hearings. Like I'm opening up a can of worms here. But you put that
was brutal.
You put a harasser's name out there without a requisite amount of whatever you want to call evidence. An anonymous hotline can lead to kinds of things.
Yeah.
But you can also address a hotline and by investigating things, right? You don't have to let anybody know.
That was the key issue, right? With the Kavanaugh thing is like, okay, we don't know exactly what happened. One person seems credible, the other person doesn't. I guess people can debate that, but it seemed pretty clear to me who was credible in that situation and who wasn't. But even still, the lack of investigation and time.
It was a public circus trial. Right?
Yeah, and it just seems so insulting to women to be like, nope, we're just going to rush this through and no investigation, or just like the most cursory of investigations. This is heartbreaking as a woman to see that.
Yeah, and I really don't know what companies do in terms of their process for investigations. I mean, I truly don't. It's not something that I don't think a lot of companies want to talk about. And I think actually that's probably a big reason why so many women feel their companies aren't doing anything, even if the companies think that they are. Because are they going to make a big announcement about it? Here, we're doing A, B, and C now. No CEO wants to stand up and say that, really. Although maybe they should. Maybe it's not so terrible to proactively address something that typically is so taboo. Maybe that's the way to deal with taboo stuff in this day and age.
I think Benioff tackled it head on with his survey. Like, I think that was proactive when he did a survey about pay equality.
Yeah.
That to me seems like something that is the easiest win.
Totally.
Like, how is that?
I think they spent $9 million, and in the scheme of things,
it's nothing.
And think about the press and the cultural benefit of that to their employee base.
Yeah, it's got to be brutal to just like come to work and then like everybody builds a spreadsheet. And this is a spreadsheet, and we talked about that issue before about how many years experience, and the people with 15 years experience are going to argue they should be compensated, and the people who stayed at the company for 15 years are going to argue I should get more because I've been here longer and I've been more loyal and I've got more experience. Okay, so we put that aside. I mean, when women at Google started putting their spreadsheet in, they were just seeing differences that just made no sense. And that was during the era where it was legal, which was just a couple of years ago, to ask and make pay offers
based on history. Right.
That's changed. So you can't ask that now, right?
Salesforce is a customer of ours. In certain places you can't. I think it's state by state. So in New York you can't anymore.
I think in California you can't. Yeah.
In California you can't. That doesn't surprise me. So Cindy Robbins, who's the chief people officer at Salesforce, which is a customer of ours, has said that when they did that compensation audit, they started paying some men more. A compensation audit is a compensation audit. Sure. It's not necessarily going to only benefit one group of people.
Who knows?
Relative to another. Same thing happened at SAP in North America.
I mean, it could be Asians or Indians are getting paid less than Caucasians.
It's just sort of like a health check that the company is doing something right. And you can imagine there's individual negotiations that happen between hiring managers, employees, and over time things get out of whack.
Yeah. Let's get back to you and your company. Speaking of female CEOs, how does your company make money? How does Fairygodboss make money?
So companies who partner with us list their jobs on our site and access the community of women we have. So we have millions of career-minded women thinking about jobs, planning their careers, trying to understand what other women do and how they do it, how they rise to the ranks successfully. And we understand how to get these women to consider employers that are different than their own when they're job seeking and also when they're not job seeking. Right. So we're a recruiting business model. Today, it's quite similar to Glassdoor. You get a profile, you get to list all your thousands of jobs on our site. And we focused on the Fortune 1000 companies because they've already spent millions of dollars on gender diversity initiatives.
Gotcha. So you're a tool for them to kind of play catch up and fix those ratios.
Yeah, we give them data too. We don't charge for it today, but we help them understand, why are your ratings not the best? Why are you not in the top 10? And how do you rank compared to a competitor, a named competitor?
So they just pay a subscription fee every month, a couple $1,000s or something?
It's going to be $34,000 next year.
Got it. So $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
They can, if they land one hire a year for a senior position, it's well worth it.
Yeah.
That's all they're going to do.
We really target women who are like 25 to 45 in our community.
Perfect.
So they're not in campus recruiting. They're not at executive headhunter level yet.
No, but they're super
aware and picky now. Pickier than they were when they were 22 about their careers.
And I would think those are like, when you get to 30 to 45, I think those are like the NBA. Those are your best performing years, perhaps.
And they're also major attrition years. Right? That's when
glass ceiling gets hit.
Yeah, political relationships become more important in terms of rising through the ranks. You also start building families. You start having other pressures in your life.
Right.
So a lot of things happen.
So you can shake somebody loose at 30 or 35 to come to your company.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So how do you keep the advice honest? How do you vet that the person actually worked at the company? I've always had this question for like Glassdoor, and I never really had clarity on how they know, because the person's not. They don't.
No, nobody knows. You can take out an email address.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to require that you have an @Dell.com email address.
Well, if you were fired, you can't anymore, right? So.
Right.
That's sort of.
So you can't really, but we have a human moderator and that reviews every review. At some point, we'll have more technology staff and have some filter. That's
check some IP addresses here and make sure you don't have like 50 great reviews coming in the same day.
And there's patterns of suspicious reviews. But honestly, we don't find that to be the real issue, the veracity of the reviews. And the more data you have that sort of shakes out this sort of errant, it's a rounding error. I don't think it's a real problem on review sites, to be honest.
Work-life balance. Talk about that for a second. What are companies doing? Because we do seem to have a generational shift. We're from the Gen X millennial generation. This new generation, and probably the tail end of millennials, very driven by maybe experiences and less about careers. Is that directionally correct, do you think? Do you see that in your data? So
my main observation about that actually comes from being a founder of a 30-person startup myself, which employs mostly people younger than myself in that generation. And I would say that I think before I had kids, I never really thought about work-life balance. And this whole term self-care was just not in my vocabulary.
Self-care.
I actually asked one of my early employees, what does self-care mean to you? And she gave me a definition, and I thought, okay, that's very interesting because I just don't have that mindset, What was the definition? Broad strokes? Well, she said people make fun of it and think it's just about bubble baths, but, Yeah. But it's about being aware of your mental health. That's a big thing. Mental health and stress. Right. And I have I have a deeper appreciation for it now than I did before, but it's hard for me. I mean, I'm a working mom. I have a 5 to 9 job, right? Or it's not 9 to 5, certainly.
Yeah.
It's even longer than that some days. And I have 3 young kids
All
at home.
you do is work. Let's be
like
candid.
all I do is just one kind of work versus another kind of work. There is no me.
And you sleep. There is no you don't have a hobby. You don't have me time. There is no time for that when you have 3 kids and a CEO of a startup.
Right. So I view my me time as my company, right? Like I'm doing that for myself. And we have a social mission.
I agree with that.
But, so our social mission appeals to these younger people. And it's actually made us really attractive as an employer.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe more to women than men, but we do have some men employees, very important men employees. Yeah. We went from 5 to 30 people this year, and I think one of the reasons we had such an easy time recruiting was this feeling that they were doing something more than work. And so I think self-care and being part of something bigger than themselves and a mission is a really important part of what it means for a Gen Z employee to pick where they're going to work and what they're going to do.
Yeah. They definitely seem to. The self-care thing is hilarious. I mean, if you want self-care, like, get off of Snapchat, like this, and Instagram, and stop like trying to post pictures of yourselves in outfits and like living like some fake life. Like they don't even realize they're creating their own anxiety condition by being obsessed with their smartphones. There's a direct correlation between smartphone and social media usage and anxiety and depression.
Yeah, maybe that's where it comes from.
Oh, no, it's clear now. The studies are showing, and what they don't know is the correlation. So is the correlation that they're not doing something and social media has replaced something that made you healthier, i.e. team sports, going to dinner with friends, looking people in the eye and having a conversation, having actual empathy with them? Or is it that looking at pictures of other people and being on this little tiny device and seeing other people live incredible, extraordinary lives on private jets in Coachella and Machu Picchu is making you feel like your life sucks?
Yeah. Well, this need for community is something that we're seeing manifest itself on our own site. So we have this Fairygodboss feed. It just launched, and women talk about their experiences on the site. And it's sometimes, so they can toggle between anonymity and their real name. And so.
Oh, that's pretty great.
And the reason why, we aspire to be a place where career-minded women go habitually, so weekly or daily. And the way I think about it is that there's this hunger for identity that blurs the lines between work and your personal life. Right. On LinkedIn, your resume is next to your face.
Yep.
You can be the best version of yourself there. You should be the best version of yourself there. But you can't really be authentic, and you can't be vulnerable. You can't ask real questions. You can't talk about how you see the trade-offs in your life and your career. This woman today, I was responding to her because I'm obsessed with this feed right now. It's a really new thing. And she laid out this whole story about how she has, for 13 years, her and her husband have balanced this dual ambition career thing, and they just can't take it anymore. So he's decided to stay home. And, it wasn't about this conversation happened around an article about why women leave STEM careers. And I just thought it was so lovely that she shared this. She posted anonymously. And so we've been watching, and it's not surprising that she posted anonymously. It's deeply personal what she just explained. Yeah. And she was trying to do sort of like this realistic warning to women out there. Like, don't forget that you could try really hard and it still may not work. And it may not have anything to do with anything but the social dynamic. You have to do so much at home. Someone has to do it.
It's pretty intense. My wife and I have this conversation often because she wanted to be a mom, and I had this pretty crazy career takeoff, and now we've been talking about it, saying well, what makes sense now? And I've started working from home in the mornings 1 day a week, and I try to get home by 6 and relieve her, and we're trying to balance it out more. Yeah, because it's kind of these girls, the 3 daughters we have, they're only going to be young once, so I need to have breakfast with them and put them to bed and spend more time with them. And so I'm making sacrifices at work and staffing up my company so that I have that time during these critical years, and that has given her the time to pursue her art a little bit more, And I think that feed is a really smart idea, because then, especially if you feature some of those discussions, and you have the feed, what do you call it? Just the
Fairygodboss feed.
The Fairygodboss feed.
I mean, one day I think I'd love for it to be the place you turn to. My best friend growing up in life ended up being a housewife. And so she works from home. She's very busy. I don't discount the work that women do at home. Right. But she's not paid for it. And I think I can't talk to her about my job and get career advice. Where's my posse of people I can turn to for real career support? And that's, I think, the kind of That's the need that drives people to our site, to just get career support from people who are in similar positions. Maybe they're the only woman on their team. Maybe they're just trying to figure out how to deal with negotiating, right?
Yeah.
Because they feel like it's a challenge. Maybe someone here has done it in this community, has done it before.
Yeah.
A very popular thing in our community are these day in the life ofs that feature women who are pretty senior in their careers and also mothers, and they talk about the kind of thing you just told us, right?
Yeah.
You share this thing about yourself and your flexibility, and I think in the past people didn't talk about it.
No, it was also like I grew up in the men, you just like put your head down and work and don't complain. That's like when I hear self-care, I'm kind of like you. I'm like, really? Self-care? Come on. Like, but I get it. Like, I meditate, so that's self-care.
Yeah.
And you work out, that's self-care. And sometimes I take a day off from work and take my daughter to the movies on a Wednesday. That's self-care too. Personal day, self-care. So
yes,
I think the millennials, like, there's lessons and everything, but some of it's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. I just have to say it. Like, sometimes I just see people like really just a little too much self-care and not enough hard work.
Well, you have a cup that says do the work, so yeah.
I do have a cup that says do the work. It is super critical, but it's a pretty easy way to value, you said before, like, how do you value a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home spouse?
Right.
I find it pretty simple. You just take the two spouses' income, you put it together, and you divide it by 2. That's how I look at my relationship with my wife.
Right.
I mean, just, we're a team, so whatever compensation we have, divided by 2, that's the contribution.
That's
and
great.
how good our kids come out, divided by 2.
That's great. I'm not sure everyone looks at it like that, but that's great.
It's the only way to look at it, because I might be, the majority of the revenue coming in, and she's the majority of the time with the kids.
Yeah.
You divide it by 2, it all works out in the end.
Right.
If you have a growing business, you need PayPal. Why? Because they are your payments partner for today and tomorrow. They are a trusted payments partner, and they process over 25 million payments a day. And you can have fast access to business loans to help you manage your cash flow and growth. And that is a huge benefit for business owners. Let you scale, expand your business to more channels, and sell to over 250 million shoppers across markets and platforms. And you can convert. PayPal is the most used digital wallet, and on average, shoppers complete checkout 88% of the time when using PayPal. It's obvious. If you use PayPal, you understand this. And they will protect you. They offer seller protection, which is readily available, customer support enabled, and fraud tools that will get smarter with each transaction. You need these tools. You need the seller protection. You're going to need that customer support. And of course, having the fraud tools helps. We use PayPal Business to accept payments online here at This Week in Startups. You can see that in our shop. And it was so easy to make. If you look at that little video demo that's playing right now, you can see how easy it is to get that PayPal button visible on your website, and that creates confidence with your audience. It makes them say, hey, I can trust this website. I can trust this brand. So if you want to grow, you need PayPal, and you can just visit paypal.com/growth. paypal.com/growth, GROWTH, to set up a business account today. It's free. Go get that business account, paypal.com/growth. We use it. We love it. It's awesome. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. Listen, I wish you continued success in your very important work at Fairygodboss. This has been a great episode. I really appreciate you being candid about everything. Guys at work, because this is really a guy issue. It's not a girl issue. It's not a woman issue. It's guys. 99.9% of the time. Idiots. Don't date at work. Don't hit on people at work. There's this thing called Tinder. It's never been easier to meet a person to go on a date.
They might be right around the corner from your office, too.
Oh, my God. It's just so dumb when you look at the harassment. I think it's like a small cohort of, like, serial offenders. All right? Like, but the fact that people no, I know Emmy Award-winning producer Jack is like, dating at work is not the issue. I am telling guys that dating at work is the issue. I'm telling them it's not worth the risk. Don't date at work, because it just opens up that gray zone of verbal, right? We saw the verbal was off the charts as a type of harassment.
Right.
Now you've put yourself in a position where you're having to have the definition of harassment, Jackie, like we've been talking about, it's like it's in the eye of the person being harassed. So a lot of these guys don't understand they're harassing in a lot of cases when they ask somebody for the 7th time to go on a date with them, or for the 20th time that they look great in a dress or something, or their hair is super cute. Like, this is not to be done. I don't know. What's your take on it? Would you, if you could just wave a magic wand and tell guys don't date at work, or that could be the rule, would you wave that wand?
So I would never put it like that. I don't know quite why. When you were talking about this, I was imagining just around here, I'm thinking about these Soma lofts, these guys who don't get out much, who are sitting behind their computers, software engineers. I think that's really hard. There's a woman near you. She talks to you. She's nice. She smells nice. She looks nice. You're really going to say, I mean, yeah, they could go on Tinder, but she's right there.
I know.
I mean, and it's, you know, and if she happens to like you back, why shouldn't you date? I mean, I wish it were clearer, but you just have to have some social intelligence.
Yeah, that's the thing that's missing, I think, is all these guys are, because they're on their computers playing video games and Fortnite, they don't interact, they don't know how to talk to a woman, like to look them in the eyes and say, hey, listen, I think you're like really interesting. I'd love to have a cup of coffee. This is like, I counsel guys on how to ask a girl out, because
you do?
Like guy friends or whatever, they don't know how to interact. And I'm like, tell the person you think they're super interesting and you'd love to have a cup of coffee with them. And they're like, what about a drink? I'm like, no, I said a cup of coffee. It lowers the like expectation level that you're going to get drunk, or that you're going to go out at night. Just, hey, I'd love to get a cup of coffee and get to know you. If you just say it just like that, I think your chances of actually getting the cup of coffee and getting to know the person will go up.
And I think actually your choice of wording was really important, because I just saw a friend earlier this week and she works at a tech company here, I will not name, and she says that what she didn't like at first about the culture, which she described as very bro-y, was that people would put coffee appointments on her calendar, and she didn't know whether there were coffee appointments related to work or related to wanting to date her. And so if he had said, the person who put the coffee calendar date on her calendar at work had said, I'd love to get to know you, I feel like that sounds pretty personal, as opposed to, I'd love to talk about this project, or you know, understand. But
it's not so personal that it's Saturday night and we're going to omakase dinner at a romantic place, or, you know, like you're lowering. And then there was like the guys who are investors. It's like one of these investor guys I know, like he got written up in New York for, and I think he's a nice guy. He was on the podcast, but he kept meeting women who were pitching him, and then 2 weeks later asking them to dinner, and the women didn't
know whether it was for work or not.
Yeah, and I think most women would have counseled other women, if it's a dinner at night on the weekend, it's probably interested in you. But if you're trying to raise money, you don't have the luxury of saying like, well, I'm going to not go to that dinner. Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I think I've been invited to dinners related to fundraising, but I have a female co-founder, so she was with me, so that makes it less date-like by definition.
It's completely inappropriate. A dinner, this is where I think, I was kind of shocked by like the behavior hasn't changed or whatever, because I see in Silicon Valley, men are terrified, and they are like, I don't want to even meet alone with women. This whole like the Vice President Pence like won't meet without a woman without another without his mom there, whose mama is his wife. It's really weird. He calls his wife mommy or mom.
Really?
Mama, yeah, and he can't go to a dinner without her with another woman. So it's a little weird, or lunch or something. It seems to me people are really concerned about the issue here and like changing their behavior. But dinner is also, when you have kids, like who has the time to go to dinner?
Who wants to eat dinner?
Yeah, so like it should be a clue. Like if some guy wants to go to dinner, that's weird. Like no dinners. Like guys, don't invite.
I mean, you're right that it's certainly easier to just draw these bright lines in terms of behavior, right?
That's what I think. Guys are so dumb. This is really what I think. Guys are so dumb, so impulsive, it has to be super clear for them. It has to be made super clear for them. And I think Facebook, the one day, ask somebody one time, even though it sounds comically stupid.
It's very clear.
It's super clear for a guy to be like, I asked her out once. The woman feels harangued. She could go tell HR, and HR's like, yep, one rule, you're not going to have to deal with that again. And case closed.
Yeah.
And if he does ask you again, he broke the one rule.
It has merit.
And now you're out. I like that one a lot.
No ambiguity.
All right, listen. Nobody feels sorry for men. Thank you. Yes, like Kara Swisher says. Boo-hoo.
I just typed that.
Yeah, that's what I'm just reading what you typed, Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie. Listen, if you're...
No, it came from me, not from you.
Yeah. Boo-hoo for men who have gotten paid twice as much as women forever. If you are running a company, go spend $34,000 on Fairygodboss right now. If you're in the Fortune 1000, do it. Then you'll have $32 million a year in revenue. Be highly profitable. It's a no-brainer. How could it... I mean, have you had a company say no?
We have about 100 customers right now. So we're doing pretty well on the revenue front.
How many in-person meetings or meetings did you have? Because I can't imagine a company that's in the Fortune 1000 saying no to a service that will easily get them one more female employee at this affordable rate.
So we don't have I don't think, like, sales is never easy. There's all, I mean, on the one hand, yes, right?
Yeah.
We launch at a good moment. The cost is not so high relative to what we're doing in terms of what it shows in terms of their brand and their concern for this issue. I think when you're a new company, you always have this uphill battle of, well, are you legit? Who else is with you? Like, you know, we have this funny name that users love, but sometimes employers are like, is this real? Fairygodboss?
Yeah, you
I mean, I don't think anyone seriously doesn't buy with us because of that. Because, like, we have Bank of America, JP Morgan, and like all these conservative, large companies with us.
I would call, yeah. I'm trying to think of who is the legendary female protagonist, Athena.
Yeah, I mean, look. Our name sort of connotes positivity. It's about anybody who elevates another woman in the workplace, because by sharing your story and your advice and your job review, you're essentially helping to accomplish our social mission, which is to create this transparency, then improves the workplace for women, right? I think when you get to the point...
It's a little bit playful.
Yeah, it's definitely playful, because you know what? Gender equality is pretty heavy, serious, and that can be a turnoff for some people, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I guess so, yeah. I'm trying to think if Glassdoor maybe was considered too playful at the beginning. I don't know. It's evocative. Godboss, fairy. The fairy part is the one that is the triggering part. Fairygodboss. Yeah. Maybe what you do is call the internal platform the enterprise solution, like Athena. So the enterprise solution is Athena. So the invoice can say Athena, or Joan or Joan of Arc, like somebody who,
Right. No, I mean, that's not a real reason people. I think when we get to the size where we are a place that you have to be if you want to reach career-minded women, then you sort of take the whole. You take all the
what happened with LinkedIn and I think Glassdoor. I mean, I think some people object to Glassdoor's approach, so they will not pay them based on that. But it's pretty hard to ignore Glassdoor. It's impossible to ignore LinkedIn.
There's definitely peer pressure in a industry category. When we sell to one company in a category, the others come.
All right. Amazing episode. Go to fairygodboss.com / just go to fairygodboss.com. You'll see everything there. All right. We'll see you all next time. Thanks, Emmy. Thank you. Thank you, Emmy Award-winning producer Jackie, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.